Hey there, this is a weekly compilation video that combines a number of my shorter videos into one longer video. If there's one of the videos you're particularly interested in, there should be chapters on this video and in the pinned comment. Otherwise, grab a snack and have fun. Let's get this started. So, do you guys remember Belle Delphine? Go back a few years, and she was like the center of internet discourse. She was, and I guess still is, a master of using absurd viral stunts and collaborations with YouTubers in order to grow her personal brand and leverage her good looks to get people to subscribe to her on a certain website that's made only for fans of her work, if you know what I mean. One of her biggest and most successful stunts was when she decided that she was going to sell her bathwater. Or well, that's what we all thought. It turns out that the move that forever earned her a spot in the Internet Hall of Fame was actually a massive loss for her. Let's talk about how Belle Delphine's biggest W turned out to be her biggest L. Firstly, let's talk about who Belle is and why she was selling her bathwater. Way back in 2019, Belle Delphine started as an Instagram cosplayer, from what I can tell. Nowadays, she's primarily an adult content creator who occasionally posts some unhinged stuff to her YouTube channel and sometimes posts photos on Twitter that you don't want to accidentally scroll past while you're in public. Thinking back, I think the first time I heard about Belle would have been from the bathwater sale or just before it. The story, as I remember it, was that thirsty guys were always commenting on her stuff, talking about how they'd drink her bathwater if they could, and she realized that she could just make them put their money where their mouths were, announcing to all the gamer boys that if they wanted, they could just order some limited edition bathwater from her.
Rise up, gamer boys. It's time to get your gamer girl bathwater.
Honestly, I'm sad that I didn't buy some at the time, because it's become a major piece of internet history. I'd put it right next to my tub of unopened Keemstar G Fuel. Obviously, selling her bathwater was a weird thing to do, but weird out-of-the-box stunts are how Belle managed to build her brand. I guess she figured out that if she did something as absurd as sell her bathwater, it'd get coverage. Now, whether or not she knew that it would go so viral that every YouTuber on the platform would be trying to get their hands on her discarded bathwater so that they could clickbait drinking it, I don't know. But literally every big YouTuber back in 2019 talked about the bathwater, especially in the commentary scene. Everybody assumed that she made massive amounts of money from it, since it's not like there's a massive upfront cost to produce bathwater, and she was selling the stuff for like $35. And I'd be downplaying it if I said that it sold out quick. This stuff was like gold back in the day. But as it turns out, it was a castle built on a foundation of lies. Belle finally admitted yesterday that she actually lost like $90,000 selling her bathwater because PayPal charged her massive amounts of money for what she says were TOS violations. Here's what Belle said. Since it's been a couple years now, I can finally share the biggest L I've ever taken. Not only did I not earn any money selling my bathwater, I in fact lost money doing it. At PayPal, without any warning, closed my PayPal account and took the $90,000 that I earned from selling my bathwater. There was nothing I could do. I tried phoning them up and they just said, sorry, nothing we can do. I knew it would be a better news story to say that I made so much money from selling my bathwater, so I kept this secret. Ultimately, I'm still glad I did it, since it was a really funny time on the internet when it happened, and I still did mail out all the bathwater people bought from me, which I did all by myself. So, F PayPal, I guess? And a screenshot of her showing that her account on PayPal was $90,000 in the hole. Then she followed that up with another tweet with more information. I apparently broke one of their TOS, and each time you break a TOS, you receive a minus $2,500 penalty. So each payment of bathwater that went through was a break of TOS, which resulted in negative $2,500 every time without me realizing. They wouldn't tell me which PayPal rule I broke, and they wouldn't give me any more information because of a, quote, security risk. So I don't know if it's because they don't allow sex workers to use their platform, or if they just had a specific issue with me selling bathwater. Regardless, not even knowing felt shit. And yeah, I think that saying it felt shit is kind of an understatement there, Belle. You lost $90,000 and whatever profits that you were going to make from one of the most famous viral stunts of the 2010s, and they wouldn't even give you a reason? That's insane. I actually feel bad for her. Though, I mean, to be honest, I didn't expect it, but I guess she's actually kind of a shrewd businesswoman. Instead of raising a fuss at the time and ruining the story for everyone, she let it slide, suffering in silence because she realized it would be a better story and help her career more if people were covering it, talking about how she made tons of money from something so bizarre. And she managed to take that story and use it to launch/promote her very successful adult site. I mean, I think that the average average person, especially with so much press on her at the time, would have said something about it, tried to press PayPal to get them to retract the fees. But she didn't, instead using the virality to make what I can only assume is way more money on her adult site than she'd have made by selling her bathwater. That's genuine business acumen there, folks, in the most unlikely of places. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's terrible that she lost all that money and never got an explanation, but she definitely made the best of a bad situation. I'm not sure how PayPal can just take $2,500 from her so many times in a row though. Like, even if they were charging her because they didn't think the bathwater sales were in line with their TOS, that's still messed up. Feels like they should have just canceled her account instead of letting the violations stack up until she was 90k in the hole. I guess that's just a risk you take when you work in an adult industry. Sometimes people will have trouble with regular bank accounts or taxes because of it as well. There's probably a lot of money to be made working as a lawyer for someone like Belle Delphine. I don't know if the average person cares as much as I do about this story. I'm pretty invested. When she sold her bathwater back in the day, this channel was new. I made a video about it and how much she made from it. Doing the math to guesstimate, it was one of my many sporadic videos posted to this channel before I really knew what I was doing and started to commit. It's one of the weird stories that I love about the internet, so to finally have a conclusion to it is good. Kind of a sentimental feeling, I guess. I miss the old days of the internet. It feels like everything's gotten so sterilized since 2020. I don't know, maybe that's just me. What do you guys think? Do you remember when Belle Delphine sold her bathwater? Did you buy any? Were you surprised to find out that she didn't make any money? Let me know in the comments. So, there's always been this weird idea that Twitch streamers have, that what they do is so much harder than what the average working man does to earn a living, with some streamers unironically believing that streaming is harder than working a normal 9-to-5 full-time job. No surprise that Hassan is among the people who believe that, causing a massive drama earlier this year, because, well, I think anyone who has worked a real job can tell you it's a lot worse than getting paid millions of dollars to play video games in your LA mansion. But now we have a streamer who tried it, a guy who decided that streaming was too much and he wanted to quit and start doing a normal job, only to almost immediately regret it and return to streaming. I'm talking about Defron, a self-described former pro Overwatch player and FPS streamer, though looking at his Twitch, it seems like he mostly plays World of Warcraft right now. Now, to be fair, for someone to have been a pro Overwatch player, I can't imagine the mental toll that would take on them. So maybe he's not the best at decision making these days. I mean, I'm not saying Overwatch causes brain damage, but if there was a game that did, I might suspect it. But regardless, he, for whatever reason, took the path less traveled and decided to quit his reasonably successful live streaming career to go work at a pallet manufacturer or warehouse. Going straight from working by sitting in front of a computer playing games to operating a forklift and working a blue-collar, very active job is definitely an interesting choice, but let him cook, I guess. He had announced his new job a few weeks back, posting a photo to Twitter saying, "I got a real-life job. First workday finished. 37 hours a week, handling pallets and using truck certificate." I assume by truck certificate he means something like a forklift license, which reminds me of the time I got scissor lift certified in like 10 minutes of training, and then they had me balance 50 feet up in the air in perhaps the sketchiest, barely stable scissor lift in the entire United States. My favorite part being the guy who trained us telling us that keeping our harnesses attached to it, if the thing fell over, would probably be worse than detaching and jumping off of it, since it would slam us into the ground like something out of WWE if we were attached to it when it fell. It was a very eye-opening experience. Luckily, it didn't fall over, and I didn't have to experience being slingshotted into the ground at high speed, but man did it feel like it would. I'm off topic, but getting back to our main subject, almost 2 weeks after his first tweet announcing his new manual labor job, Defran announced on Twitter that he's quit because it was way harder than being a streamer. On Twitter, he said, "I quit my job. I lasted 2 weeks. Working 37 hours a week job is way harder than streaming. I am glad I tried it. Now I can appreciate how good I have it streaming. I will stream until I can't anymore." Which is honestly, I think, exactly how every single one of you thought it would go. At least he's humble about it and will admit that streaming is easier than working a real job. I don't think there's a single well-adjusted human being with a fully intact brain that would argue that streaming is harder than a real job. For the most part, the people who actually believe that streaming is a hard job are streamers with massive egos who have their self-worth tied to their job. So when you tell them that it's easy, they get upset. I mean, sure, it's going to be socially draining and maybe might strain your vocal cords from the talking, but does that compare to waking up at 5 a.m., driving into the old pallet factory, sipping on a cup of joe while driving a forklift around, watching old Jim accidentally knock over a huge stack of pallets and need to be dug out, occasionally getting a nail going through your boot so that your boot's now a part of your body and it won't ever come off, only to go home to your wife who is upset because you're not home enough even though you're working yourself to the bone to make enough money to send little Jimmy, your son, off to college when he's older, even as now he barely knows you because you're only home a few hours each day before he goes to sleep. No, streaming doesn't compare in difficulty to the average life of the average man, which is basically a personal crusade against poverty. But what do you guys think? Is there one of you that actually believes that streaming is so difficult that you'd rather work a manual labor job? Or would you expect the average streamer to last just about as long as our friend Defron did, which is just under 2 weeks? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching all the way till the end. Remember to like and subscribe, it really helps me out. So, Asmongold's back in the news. I know that's probably not surprising. He seems to get involved in pretty much every different drama that pops up. Something about him just upsets people, but this time it's not his fault. Another Twitch streamer who goes by Denims is the one to blame. What did she do? Well, she offered thousands of dollars for someone to off Asmongold. At least, that's what Asmon thought. In reality, the clip's cut in such a way where it looks like she's making this offer about Asmongold, but given what she was reacting to, it's entirely possible that she meant to offer the money for the offing of Mark Kern, who goes by Grums on Twitter. Either way, this was a terrible thing for her to do, and it's amazing to me that Twitch hasn't banned her yet, though I expect it's coming, because there's corporate media attention on the situation now. So today, let's talk about it. Firstly, who are these people? Well, let's start with Denims. She's a self-described political streamer and lady who talks about stuff. Basically, she's a discount Hassan grifter. Asmongold, on the other hand, is one of the biggest streamers on Twitch, who's famous for being the stereotypical gamer dude. We're talking he lives in a full-on lair and probably has more hours in WoW than he does talking to women. That being said, as much as it's fun to joke about Asmon, he's also a successful businessman and his opinion is highly regarded in the community, just not on Twitter. Grums, or Mark Kern, is a former Blizzard guy who was the team lead on World of Warcraft and a producer on a few other games. He's also somehow become a boiling point in the culture war. You see, this whole situation with Asmon and Denims stems from what Grums has gotten himself into on Twitter. He's fighting on the front lines of the culture war, most recently and notably talking about the game Stellar Blade. Now, I made a video on the Stellar Blade drama a little while back, but basically the game journos were mad that the main character, Eve, is attractive. Grums was one of the people who called that out, and since he's got a large following, he accidentally reignited the culture war by bringing so many eyes to the situation. It got so bad that IGN had to apologize for their terrible takes on the whole thing. Then, when the game came out promising an uncensored release, only to censor the game, Grums has been big to call that out as well. But what does all that have to do with Asmon and Denims? Well, to be honest, Grums' takes on the culture war issues are kind of the least offensive opinions to possibly have, but somehow he still manages to make people irrationally angry at him. When he pointed out the censorship in the released version of Stellar Blade, one of the people who got lost in the sauce was a guy who went by Tone Man on Twitter. Tone Man had tweeted out saying, "20k to anyone who makes this dipshit disappear," which is offering money for someone to off Grums. Now, not only is that taking a pointless culture war issue way too far, it's also a blatantly illegal thing to do, which I guess he found out since he completely nuked his entire internet presence to try and avoid the consequences of his actions. Anyway, Asmon reacted to Tone Man's tweet about Grums, and in the clip, she's watching Asmon's video, where he reacted to Tone Man's response to Grums' tweet. I know it's annoyingly hard to follow. Anyway, here's what she said.
Listen, I'll up the number, okay? 30k to anyone who'll make this dipshit disappear and make Eve's breasts bigger. Okay, you have to do both. Alright? Because then it's a win-win for me. I get more breast, and I don't have to see that moron on my timeline anymore. So if you think about it,
That's right, she blatantly called for the death of someone live on Twitch and offered to pay an extra 10k over what the original Tone Man tweet had said. Now, not only is that unhinged, illegal, and an insane thing to say, she knows that it is. She knows that what she's saying is not just bannable, but also criminal. That's why she adds the part about breasts, in my opinion. It's kind of like how streamers will sometimes say they're going to break some law or do something and then say, in Minecraft. But instead, she's saying something ridiculous immediately after something heinous, so that she can cover herself by saying, I was clearly joking, no one should take that serious. I mean, I was even joking about breasts at the same time as saying that. Which is, I mean, well played by her, since a lot of people will take that as a valid answer. But it still remains that in reality, it's not. Imagine Asmon had said that about her. Do you think they'd wait over a day before banning him? No. Don't get me started on the issues with Twitch moderation though. It's ridiculous that as I'm recording this, Twitch has done nothing about it. I'm not usually one who likes bans, but when someone explicitly calls for the death of another person on a stream, that's a crime, which goes beyond First Amendment protection. protections, and shouldn't be allowed, in my opinion. Moving on from that, you can probably tell why there's some confusion as to whether she's threatening Asmon or Grums based on that clip, since as she is talking, she no longer has the Grums tweet on screen, just Asmon's face. Personally, I think that given the context, she was talking about Grums. Can't really be entirely sure since she deleted the VOD to try and hide what she had said, but it doesn't matter either way. Even if it was directed at Grums and not Asmon, that doesn't make it any less horrible. You shouldn't just flippantly throw around offing someone, even if we were to be very generous and take the most favorable view for her and accept that she was joking. That's still not something you joke about, especially well in front of an audience of impressionable people. But either way, Asmon took it as a threat directed at him, and he wasn't happy about it one bit, as I think is warranted. He went on to send the clip to Twitch and implied that he would possibly be making a police report about the incident, which I think he probably should, because if he had said this about her, there's no doubt in my mind that she'd do anything in her power to make sure he was banned or arrested. That's just how people like her are, in my opinion. Don't give the snake the same treatment that you'd give a rabbit. Anyway, here's what Asmon said.
I know I should put out bounty on Asmon Live. What is this? Oh, I saw this. Somebody linked this to me, obviously. We'll watch this. Here we go.
Listen, I'll up the number, okay? 30K to anyone who'll make this dipshit disappear and make Eve's breasts bigger. Okay, you have to do both. All right? Because then it's a win-win for me.
What a retard.
I get more breast, and I don't have to see that moron on my timeline anymore.
Oh my god.
So if you think about it.
Well, she's so aggressive? Well, it's simple. So how do you deal with a situation like this? It's really easy. I contacted Twitch about it earlier. I sent them the clip, and we'll see what happens. And, you know, maybe after that, I might put in a police report. I'm gonna just wait and see how things play out. This is unhinged. It's completely unhinged. It's totally uncalled for. Yeah, this is like a felony. What is this? She's got me on the screen, and she's saying that. Yeah, so I did see this. I thought it was quite ridiculous. It's actually kind of a surprise. She made a clip saying the cops would laugh at the clip and not take it seriously, Lamau. Well, maybe that's the case. I guess we'll find out.
So it appears that he's taking it seriously, more serious than Denims was when she was just casually threatening someone, at least. I'm not sure what Grums was doing about it, but he did tag the FBI on Twitter, which is objectively a meaningless thing to do, by the way. But both of the people that this could have been directed at are certainly upset about it. It's wild to me that Twitch hasn't done anything about this yet, and that so far the biggest fallout has been that Denims had to private her Twitter so that she wouldn't have to deal with people criticizing her actions. Though weirdly, the UK corporate media seems to have picked up the whole story, and typically once something hits the traditional media, that's when the suits decide that they have to actually respond to something. So I wouldn't be surprised if Twitch takes action soon if they haven't while I was editing this. Side note, I think it's very funny to see that the UK media had to translate the price she offered from 30k to 24,000 British pounds. What do you think about this entire thing? Was the threat directed at Asmon or at Grums? Do you think that she should be banned from Twitch? Do you think that she deserves to face legal consequences? Or was this entire thing blown out of proportion? Let me know in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already. So, it happened again. More video game studios are being shut down, this time by Microsoft. If you haven't noticed yet, the video game industry is in a bit of a weird spot right now. It seems like layoffs at game studios are announced every other week, and indie or small studio made games seem to be massively outperforming the AAA or now even quadruple A games this year. The AAA gaming market losing ground to indie and small teams is one of the biggest problems for a company like Microsoft and their gaming divisions, which, in my opinion, have suffered recently from a design by committee approach and an aversion to risks. So while it wasn't too surprising to see Microsoft shut down Arcane Austin, who made Redfall, one of the worst games of last year, it was surprising to see them shut down Tango Gameworks, who made the pretty popular game Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush is well, I guess you'd call it a rhythm-themed action game. It's kind of a weird little game that is by all accounts pretty fun. It even has an overwhelmingly positive rating on Steam. It also only costs $29.99, which in a year when weird little indie games at a cheap price point like Pow World have seen overwhelming success seems to point to Tango Gameworks being the kind of studio that you'd think Microsoft would keep open. It's not like Hi-Fi Rush was a failure by any metric, and everyone I've talked to has given it glowing reviews. So it makes zero sense for Microsoft to shut it down unless they had some internal financial problems, games or something like that. It's just a bad move. And to announce it at the same time as they announced the shutdown of Arcane Austin implies to me that they see them as similar studios. But they're not, except that they're both smaller. Arcane Austin made Redfall, and Redfall was awful. It honestly barely deserved to be called a video game. From scope creep to just bad implementation, the game launched as a mess, full of broken promises, baffling bugs, and well, honestly, it was pretty much unplayable. So to close them at the same time as the at least outwardly successful Tango Gameworks is weird, because one of them is actually fairly competent and made a successful game, while the other is completely incompetent and made a game so bad that I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if there is not a single person with more than a few hours of playtime. And I think to see them both shut down at the same time, in the same breath, it's really a symptom of what's going on in gaming right now. The big gaming companies are increasingly out of touch with their customers, the average gamer. These companies seem to be trying to focus on big ticket, high budget games right now, trying to emulate the success of industry titans like Minecraft or Fortnite, while ignoring the success of indie games and the growing market share that small, independently made games are carving out. It's a losing gamble, I think, for Microsoft to do this. Not only do they lose the goodwill of the average gamer by shutting down the small studios, they also seem to be funneling money towards their bigger teams that might have a very small chance of making something that prints money, but at what cost? Does it make sense to gamble on one or two big ticket games every year? Or would it be better to flood the market with smaller, but still high quality games like Hi-Fi Rush? I think the second has a better chance of actually making you money year after year. And if the money you saved by shutting down a new studio just goes towards one of the bigger studios hiring more people, making a more complicated game, I think that just loses money in the long run. I mean, games are supposed to be almost art. Good games are like stories or movies that the player can experience and go through at their own pace with their own skill. But one of the reasons we've seen so many massive AAA failures like Skull and Bones, for instance, seems to be partly because the team making it was too large. The more people involved, the more complicated something is. It means that every decision is a design by committee, and that never works out good. It might make something tolerable, certainly something that's appealing to the broadest audience possible, but if everybody likes the idea of your game, and yet it's so bad that nobody wants to play it, you've still failed. That's the beauty of indie and smaller studios. They can pump out quality games, and the games tend to keep their sense of soul, the idea behind them, what makes them meaningful or fun. So in the long run, I think that closing smaller studios is going to end up being a bad decision on Microsoft's part. I genuinely think that indie games are the future of gaming, especially in the next couple of years, with the AI push going on everywhere. It's not long until we start getting more and more tools that make creating and programming a game much easier than it would be even right now. Who knows how many great indie ideas are currently locked inside the head of someone who lacks the programming knowledge to make their idea a reality. Soon, that won't matter. Anyway, what do you guys think? Is this a good or bad move on Microsoft's part? Do you think that smaller studios are as valuable as the bigger ones? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching all the way till the end. Remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and God bless you.